Jerusalem was a shadow of what it had once been. After 70 years in Babylonian exile, the people of Judah returned expecting restoration, but what awaited them was devastation. The city lay in ruins. Collapsed walls, burned gates, empty streets, and a silence heavy with memories of glory long gone. Where Solomon's majestic temple once stood, a place filled with music, sacrifice, and divine presence, there were only scorched stones and shattered foundations. The survivors wandered like remnants of a forgotten past, unsure if their identity as God's people still remained. Life became a struggle for survival. The surrounding nations were hostile, harvests were poor, and fear hung in the air like dust. Those who returned had dreamed of rebuilding their homeland, but exhaustion and discouragement defeated them. They built their own homes, secured their fields, and focused on daily necessities. Meanwhile, the temple, the heart of their faith, remained abandoned. 16 years passed this way. The ruins became a silent reminder of failure, and the people convinced themselves that the time to rebuild had not yet come. Then, in the 2nd year of King Darius, on the 1st day of the 6th month, the silence of Jerusalem was interrupted. A man stepped forward, carrying no status, wealth, or impressive lineage. His name was Haggai, a prophet whose appearance was simple, but whose voice carried divine authority. He walked through the dusty streets with calm determination. People turned to look at him, sensing that something greater than the man himself approached. Haggai spoke, and his message pierced the hearts of all who heard it. The Lord declared that the people claimed it was not time to rebuild his house, yet they lived comfortably in their own. This truth exposed what everyone had tried to ignore. Their lack of progress, their meager harvests, their constant dissatisfaction. None of it was coincidence. They had put God aside, and their lives reflected the emptiness of that choice. They planted but reaped little, ate but were never satisfied, earned wages only to see them disappear. Their efforts produced nothing because their priorities were misplaced. Haggai's message was not condemnation but awakening. Restoration required action. God commanded them to go to the mountains, gather wood, and rebuild his house. This was not merely about constructing a building. It was about restoring their identity, renewing their purpose, and remembering the covenant that defined them as a nation. The people listened, shaken yet hopeful. God stirred the spirits of Zerubbabel, the governor of Judah, and Joshua, the high priest. Together they rallied the nation. The people who had once been paralyzed by fear began to work again. The ruins that had symbolized defeat now became the center of determination. 23 days after Haggai's message, the first signs of reconstruction filled the city. The sound of tools striking stone echoed through Jerusalem, replacing the silence of despair with the rhythm of purpose. But rebuilding was not easy. A month into the work, discouragement resurfaced. The older generation remembered Solomon's temple, the gold, the cedar, the grandeur, and when they looked at the new construction they wept. The comparisons stole their hope. The new temple appeared small and unimpressive. Enemies mocked from the outside, resources were limited, and many wondered if their effort was meaningless. God spoke again through Haggai. The prophet gathered the trembling nation and delivered a promise that reached deeper than any physical foundation. God told Zerubbabel, Joshua, and all the people to be strong and continue the work. The reason was simple and unshakable: I am with you. These words carried more strength than any stone they could lay. God reminded them of the covenant made when he brought them out of Egypt, assuring them that his spirit remained among them. Then came the message that transformed despair into destiny. Though the physical structure might seem inferior, God declared that the glory of the new temple would be greater than that of the former. Not because of architectural splendor but because of divine presence. The temple they were rebuilding would one day be visited by the Messiah himself. The very place they considered small would become the stage on which God incarnate would walk, teach, confront injustice, heal the broken, and reveal the fullness of divine glory. This promise lifted the people's eyes from stones and timber to a future woven into God's eternal plan. Strengthened by this revelation, the nation pushed forward. Haggai continued to deliver God's messages, reminding them of the spiritual significance of their labor. Their obedience was more important than any material outcome. God warned them not to repeat the mistakes of their ancestors but encouraged them that from the moment they resumed the work, he would bless them. What they planted would prosper and the land would respond again with life. 4 months after Haggai's first message, God delivered a final prophecy. He declared that he would shake the heavens and the earth, overthrowing kingdoms and destroying the power of nations. This cosmic promise was connected to Zerubbabel. God chose him as a signet ring, a symbol of authority and divine approval. Through Zerubbabel's lineage the Messiah would come. A governor without a throne, leading a battered people, became a link in the chain of God's redemptive plan. Years passed and the work continued. On the third day of the month of Adar in the 6th year of King Darius, the temple was finally completed. It was the result of perseverance, faith, and divine encouragement. When the people gathered to celebrate, they were not merely rejoicing over a finished building. They were witnessing proof that God restores what seems beyond repair. The temple stood as a monument of resilience and promise. It embodied the truth that God never abandons his people and that even the smallest acts of obedience can lead to extraordinary outcomes. Haggai's ministry lasted only a short time, yet its impact stretched far beyond his generation. His words did not depend on displays of miraculous power. Instead, they revived a nation's heart. He reminded them who they were, who their God was, and what purpose they were meant to carry. The book of Haggai, though brief, represents a turning point in Israel's history. It teaches that renewal begins not with strength but with willingness. The people rose from discouragement not because the work became easier, but because they understood that God was with them in every stone they lifted. The rebuilt temple stood as a bridge between past suffering and future hope. Centuries later, Jesus would enter that very place. The footsteps of the Messiah would fulfill the prophecy that the glory of the latter house would surpass the former. The humble structure they built became the setting for divine revelation, healing, teaching, sacrifice, and redemption. Haggai's story remains a testament to the power of obedience, courage, and perseverance. It shows that even in times of ruin, God calls his people to rise, rebuild, and trust. The prophet who emerged from obscurity awakened a generation and secured their place in God's unfolding plan. And through his message, the ruins of Jerusalem became the foundation of renewed faith and unshakable hope.